What might be an example or two of APT attacks that listeners might have heard about in which stronger cyber defense could have made a big difference?
Yeah, that's another great question. So I think if we just look back 6 months, let's go back 6 months, or maybe a little bit more, 9 months. Uh, there was so much news about SolarWinds, the SolarWinds attack that had taken place. And recently, just in the last 60 days, we've heard about the Colonial Pipeline attack that impacted, on the East Coast. And then just even more recently, in the last 30 to 45 days, we heard about the ransomware attack on JBS, the meat packaging company, which is by sales, if I'm saying the numbers correctly, by sales volume, that's one of the largest meat processing packaging company in the world. And so if you look at these three entities, there were different things that occurred that led to a compromise in their cybersecurity. In the case of SolarWinds, just to go back to that for a second, when we think of SolarWinds and what happened there, the lesson for the industry and all of us is the cybersecurity supply chain in terms of software. So here you have a vendor whose software has been compromised, and that vendor's software is being downloaded on our systems, but what's being downloaded has malware in it. And that's a problem. So we got to be really careful about that. When we look at what happened at Colonial Pipeline, as well as JBS, here you have ransomware type events that have taken place. And so organizations have to take a step back. Data is of immense value. And we have to be able to, if a server or an asset is compromised, how can we quickly recover, rebuild, and reload that data that we don't have access to anymore? Our customer data, or it could be patient data, whatever that might be, we should have the capabilities to recover that. So we've got to, in the overall cyber defense area, we got to be looking closely at our supply chain. Who are the vendors that we work with? Even though our defenses may be strong, if they have a weak defense, that could compromise our environment. So security is only as strong as your weakest link. And we got to make sure we are aware of what are these weak links and implement the appropriate capabilities there. That's number one. Secondly, when it comes to these ransomware events, it's no longer a question of if, but when. Is our organization going to be a victim of this ransomware event? So every organization should develop a policy on ransomware. What are they going to do? What are the steps they're going to take if there is an event? And we should really perform a business impact analysis to understand our valued assets. If that gets impacted, what are the steps from a disaster recovery perspective that allows us to recover that data very quickly without having to pay that ransom? So I think these are areas that, to your question about what are some recent events that we can learn from, I think the SolarWinds, Colonial Pipeline, JBS, these should really be case studies inside every organization to understand, could this happen to us? And if it happens to us, how can we recover very quickly?